Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. Ed, what's going on, my man?
Nothing. Enjoying the summer-like weather we got here in the fall over on the East Coast. I think we're warmer than you today. Yeah, I mean, another pay-per-view is upon us. The
We do have
UFC.
a pay-per-view. We have also that pay-per-view in December I spoke of, and I'm not gonna go too hard on the UFC. But I do think it should be made a little bit public for the people that do hear this and that maybe go to the events. So, and for those especially who invest in the Fight Club membership, I have a Fight Club membership right now, and it ended up in my lap for doing a favor from a friend who lives in a foreign country, buying tickets for him. When I bought tickets for him, it came along with that thing, so I just kind of have it in my back pocket for like the last year. I don't use it. It's usually kind of a joke, but for this event, I passed up on my chance to get seats elsewhere and use the Fight Club membership. Well, the elsewhere Fight Club membership and the Thursday newsletter pre-sale all had set prices, good prices. I think I even mentioned it last week on the show how prices were really reasonable, and even at that price, well, they got more reasonable. And that's good for fans in the public who bought them on Friday, but it's a little bit of a stickler by the UFC to basically gouge the fans who are your Fight Club membership. Let me put it in perspective. Let's say you wanted a $300 ticket and you needed to buy the Fight Club membership. On Wednesday, that roughly would have cost you about, after fees, you're looking at about $500 for that $300 ticket. Come Friday, that $300 ticket ran you probably roughly $225. So that's just maybe more, maybe up to 250, 265, somewhere in that range where the fees, I'm not sure how the percentages all work. But yeah, so just an idea right there of what the UFC did to their hardcore fans on this. Now, it's not the first time prices have dropped. I've taken advantage of it in the past. I've seen prices rise. So I've been on both sides of this. I'm not going to cry myself a river, and nobody should cry one for me because I've been to a million of these things. So it happens, and I've sat with people who have really been shafted, mainly for the McGregor 303. Some people really got taken on that who weren't aware of the refund policy. But for the people, like I said, who do listen to this show, and if it gets out to anybody's ears, it's a little bit shady. And damaging. I get it. I get it if it drops like a month from now, if sales aren't doing well. I get what you could do, what you got to do as a company. However, to do it the first day of pre-sale to the public after a pre-sale with the people that support you and have support and are giving you more money for even the option to do this, to go is a little on the dirty side. I'm not going to say it's criminal or anything like that, but a little on the dirty side. At least wait a week next time, boys. So like the people that are really looking at tickets don't notice it the very first second it goes on sale to the public that they kind of got taken.
And especially now when you got fans that are rabid, fans of the brand, like someone's gonna notice it, because especially if they watch them, you've always been watching tickets like this. That's your whole thing. You go to all. It's not just for the UFC. You've done it for Bellator. You've done it for one championship. Like
I do it for concerts. I do it for sporting events. Yeah, I'm a big attender of live events. Have been my whole entire life. So it's been something, and somebody who does it on a budget. I have to do it that way. So, I'll take my lump on this one. I'm not gonna, it's not that it's financially gonna break any backs. It didn't cost me hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but my seat selection did cost me a little bit. Might be ringing if they drop any more prices at all. If it goes any lower, then I will be reaching out to some of my special contacts that I reach out to about once every decade. And I might be asking for for what the deal is with that one. But we'll move on from that because we do have some good stuff to look forward to. The pay-per-view we talked about, but also this past weekend's PFL event went off pretty well, I would say. I didn't sit down and watch the card from start to finish. I had it on, but I did catch the fight.
Hard to do because they didn't really tell you how to watch the entire card, but if you
Correct.
follow
And
the
early
Zone's
on, there was
MMA
big
YouTube
gaps
channel,
between it. Yeah, it
yeah,
was, it was. I got it from. I saw that it started like at 9:30 my time. Well, it really didn't start at 9:30. I think it started closer to 10:30.
yeah.
And then there was like some. I felt like there was just a lot of promotions and so on and so on. But
Oh yeah,
but once everything kind of got going, um, I would say that it lived up to what I expected of it. I think especially the last three fights. I mean,
hmm
uh, I know you were giving Fahea a little bit more of a shot than perhaps I was, but we were pretty much, uh, I think, in unison when it came to Eblin, Cyborg, um,
yeah. And
and
Ngannou, yeah.
and Ngannou. So, we were wrong. Paul Hughes looked outstanding. I mean, he shut down AJ McKee more than I've ever seen
Yeah,
or would
that
have
that
expected.
shot that dropped him in the first round, I was completely shocked. The fact that he caught him like that. I don't know if it was. I mean, so there's two things that you could that I took away from it, especially because I watched the. I had to search for post fight interview stuff because PFL's they just once they're done with their event everyone can fuck right the fuck off. So MMA Junkie was on hand and they did good coverage of it. So I watched their stuff and the post fight interview stuff that they did after the fact. And Evelyn was the kind of one that kind of hinted because if you remember, McKee wasn't supposed to be this fight wasn't supposed to be on this card. It was supposed to be on one of their other cards that they canceled and still have yet to fucking address. But like as to why they did what they did, but we all know why they did what they did. Obviously, they just wanted to load up this card to justify the cost of a pay per view. So, but Evelyn was the one that said that. And if you watch the fight again, because I did after he said it, Johnny Evelyn was like in the final round, he felt the location, the time difference, and everything just to get acclimated to him. That took its toll on him, and if he looked like fatigued or if it looked like he was kind of coasting to survive because he knew he had it in the bag, that's why. And I'm wondering if the same can be said, for McKee because again, he was supposed to fight somewhere. This fight was supposed to be somewhere else, and changing the date and extending the camps or shortening camps or whatever the hell they did to these poor guys. I know they were compensated financially. At least Evelyn was because he said it. I'm sure McKee was too. But it's one of those things where I'm when I watch the fight, I'm like, man, I know AJ McKee. You know, he again. I know he's got a little more money in his pocket too from his where his career went. So maybe he's I don't know a little comfortable. Maybe overestimated Hughes. There's a lot of what ifs, but I'm sure we'll hear from him once he gets back home and stuff. But yeah, I'm just wondering if that had something to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll hear a lot of excuses from him. I don't
Mm-hmm.
get that read from him as a person or a fighter, but I would say that you bring up a point where I'll say Hughes just signed with PFL.
Mm-hmm.
So this is new to him and maybe something fresh and something he's excited for. I
Mm-hmm.
would be willing to bet, and I don't know him, but I would be willing to bet if AJ McKee, you got him in a corner and it was just you and him, and you said, "Man, do you want the hell out of this contract?"
Yeah.
I would bet that he's probably looking forward to the day that he can go sign with UFC at this point. I think he enjoyed his time at Bellator. I don't. Maybe he enjoys it. I know he went to attended some of these PFL events
Mm-hmm.
prior, but
That was in the beginning of when everything was
but
fresh.
I
But now,
just, I mean, if I, as a fan, can't even figure out like where this is going at all, I can't imagine the frustration of being involved and
yeah, the
having to live with
communication
it.
doesn't seem to be their strong suit. Again, like if you listen to Eblin's interview with Damon Martin, where he talks about his experience, you take that and wonder how the guys that aren't holding titles and how they're being treated. The stuff I've heard on the back end that I can't really speak too much on, but like the feedback I've gotten from because I covered Bellator for a lot for a while, and the stuff that I hear is it's very corporate, and when I say corporate, I say it in the vein of the corporation where the guys sitting in the main office aren't really thinking too much about the general staff overall. There's a few that they're picking and choosing, and I think we're seeing that. I mean, if you look at Larissa Pacheco and Chris Cyborg, they were very vocal up until they finally fought last weekend. Um, And Cyborg said she was elated that she picked up another belt, which we should definitely talk about. I mean, the woman has done
She's the
Jesus, like
goat. She's
yeah,
the goat. I know she lost to Nunes, but she's
yeah,
the long-standing 20-year. I mean, we saw the Flash Ronda come in for a handful of years and then disappear. Gina Carano, God love her, but she lasted a
hmm
couple years. We've seen the Tanya Evangers go by the board. I mean, we've seen them all go by the board. And from day one, Cyborg was there, and at day 2024 now, she's still
yeah,
there, and now she is the champion of basically every single organization that's ever
hmm
existed that had
hmm
any merit that other than maybe something in Japan and Smack Girl, but I don't think Smack Girl
hmm
had anything in her weight class.
yeah,
Or maybe they did, but regardless, not a major pay-per-view promotion. And I mean, I don't think there's enough things you could say about her. I mean, everything, like I said last week, though, she's developed her game to now.
hmm
It's she's out grappling the grapplers. She's out striking most people. It's just I
and you got to give credit to Larissa Pacheco too, because that fight went a little. It wasn't as lopsided as I thought it was going to be. And I mean, there was moments. Pacheco had her moments too, where Cyborg even gave her credit at the end. Like she said, every punch she threw was damaging. And
Yeah,
that's
I mean, you're right. Because
yeah.
early on, Cyborg had her, and I thought she was going to actually pound her out when she had, like half guard. I think it was first round, and
hmm
she was raining down some good punches, and she survived the 5 rounds. And I thought
I
it was
was.
actually 3 rounds to 2. They ended up giving it to her 4 rounds to 1. But
She had this what looked like a game plan, Cyborg, where she was backing up and and I know she was doing that to draw her in to scoop her up and do the takedowns. But there was points where I was like, I don't know how these judges or who's judging what in Saudi Arabia. Like people can read that another way as the so depending on who's watching, they can read that as control for Pacheco. And I was actually worried about the decision, but I'm glad it went her way. And again, I mean, not for nothing. If Cyborg's the number one featherweight woman in the world, which I think we could safely say she is, then Pacheco's still number two. Like because she definitely didn't let make it easy for Cyborg.
no, but when you start doing the count now, trying to figure out who number 3 is almost impossible. That's the problem. It lies with
Mm-hmm.
featherweight women's MMA is that you kind of like what would be next for Cyborg.
Mm-hmm.
Like honestly, she's getting up there in age. Um, I mean, I'm at a point now where I kind of just want to see her box like Clarissa Shields. I don't care if it's at 180 pounds. I really don't care at this point. Like I want to see this woman like, she fought Jorina Bars, who was one of the great Muay Thai fighters of all time,
Mm-hmm.
and she lost. She got beat up badly in Lion
Yeah,
Fight a decade ago now.
yeah, I almost forgot about that.
But
Yeah.
but she pushed herself and she went up against the best. I don't know if she can beat one of these women, top women, a Katie Taylor, or
Mm.
I don't know if she can beat him, but at this point, she deserves. I mean, we saw McGregor fight Mayweather after what 3-4 years. You know what I mean? Like Cyborg, if any fight she can get, she deserves to have. She shouldn't be held into contract. If UFC wants her back, if she wants to fight, I'm just getting to the point now where it's like she's done everything she can do, and I'd like to see her in a super boxing match.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe on the undercard of a Jake Paul fight, even like where eyes are on it. You know what I mean? Where
Hey, that's
she
possible. Jake Paul's in bed with the PFL too, so
there you go.
definitely possible.
I didn't even think about that crossover
Mm-hmm.
there, but and I don't even know if I feel like her and Shields could almost headline their own. I don't know how women's pay-per-view boxing does, but in general, it seems like that would be a fight that the fight public would
I
be
know they've trained
interested in.
together too, so I don't know how
Oh,
interested
they
Cyborg
don't
would
like
be.
each other. Well, they've talked about it. Cyborg wants
Yeah.
her to drop down to
Oh, that's
150
right.
or
That's
145,
right.
and
Yeah.
Shields won't do it or wants smaller glove. There's an excuse coming from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there should be excuses. In my mind, there shouldn't be excuses coming from the boxing champion. If someone's coming into your sport,
Yeah.
like I would be going, dude, step in. What rules do you want? I'll knock you the
Yeah,
hell
kind of
out.
like
Like,
Michael Chandler with Connor. He was like, whatever weight class, whatever. Like, let's just go.
let's just go.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I like that
Hey,
attitude more.
if the money's right with the Saudi people, if they're still involved with the PFL, anything can happen as
That's
long as the
true.
money's
That's true.
there.
Saudi gets involved. The more money, anybody will drop weight. Anybody will gain weight. Anybody will
Hmm.
wear any gloves you want. No gloves at all if you pay them the right amount of money. So, um, I mean, there's nobody in BKFC her size. I know there was the Christina Fajea stuff, but that's a 20, 30-pound weight difference. That don't need to happen. So I don't know, but she is. I mean, she's
She
she's
said,
amazing. I mean, she is the.
yeah.
I just and
I feel
all of her
like,
fights are fun to watch.
yeah, and I feel like not enough is being. I mean, everyone's talking about. I mean, we're going to talk about Ngannou too, but his return and dominant return that he had. But like, I feel like there's more talk about that, and not enough about the fact that Cyborg picked up another belt in the sport that she's been able to be pretty, formidable in. Despite the Nunes loss, she's always still in the top. Like, she's a threat to champions, and she's definitely championship material because she's held the title already. UFC, Invicta, Strikeforce, Bellator, and now PFL. Like, she's
can you
literally
have
like she's
can you
like the
in
Thanos
your
ring of
in your entire life, can you think of a fight she had? I'll give you one. Leslie Smith. Other than Leslie Smith, can you think of a single fight she had where it wasn't for a title in 20 years?
yeah. Yeah, it's
Like who? She's lost twice, so she's been the champion. Her first loss was her first fight of her career, and then she lost to Nunes. So, and that was
yeah.
still a title fight. So every fight, I mean, literally, there's a couple. I'm sure I'm forgetting. Like I said, the Leslie Smith, but that was a catchweight. Her first fight back in the UFC. But from that
Mhm.
point on, it was title fight, title fight, title fight. It was Evinger. It was, it was whoever the heck else they gave her. Holm and stuff like that. But that's it's just crazy to think about, really. And like you said, she's not getting enough credit.
Mhm.
She should have been really almost the headline coming out of this. Now you had the lineal all
Mhm.
world MMA heavyweight champion going into this, which is
Yeah.
obviously cool that we have like the Strikeforce, Bellator, UFC Pride. It all comes together
Mhm.
now. Yama, Elite XC, basically every major organization in the world that's ever existed, their title lineage now comes completely to Francis Ngannou,
Yeah.
who is quickly making an argument as the greatest heavyweight of all time. And for me to
Mhm.
say those words is harder than probably most, being that Fedor is my guy from day one. But
Mhm.
your resume doesn't lie, you know. It
Yeah,
just doesn't.
I didn't I expected a different kind of fight. I didn't expect him to shut Fajeda off the way that he shut him off in that fight. I was just like, when he dropped and he went limp, I was like, wow, it's over. I mean, a lot of people were talking, even Ngannou said, I think the ref could have jumped in a little earlier, but
About two punches earlier, he could have saved his
yeah, but
consciousness. But
it was just like, and then somebody put together the look that he had. Somebody posted it on social media. The look he had was the same look Cyril Gahn had when John Jones beat him at a heavyweight. Kind of just looked like, what the fuck just happened to me? And I mean, after the run Fajeda has been on, I mean, he was beating dudes that trained with Jones that were as big as him, and just turning people off. I just thought for some reason, I thought he would have more of a chance. But like, that's the thing about Ngannou being away for so long. Because like, when he shot in for the takedown, I was like, whoa, what's this? And then
yeah, but then you quickly realized how smart it was.
yeah,
Because you're like, this guy's only chance is really to catch me. He's bigger than me. He's got a longer reach.
yeah,
Like, why play his game? I also kind of wonder if it was a little bit of a shot or okay, John Jones. Okay,
yeah,
we're all heavyweights now. So
yeah.
now you want to see what? Okay, we're wrestling people down and putting them out. Well, I mean, I don't know. When was the last time John Jones finished anybody with strikes?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I kind of, wonder if it was like, okay, you're the big boy league now. You're talking about wrestling me down and elbowing me into hell. Well, let me show you what it looks like.
Yeah.
Let me show you what it really looks like, because I'm not, Matt Hamill. I'm not, Vladimir Mashenko. Like, I am Francis Ngannou, and this is what I
Imagine
can.
Yeah.
you know,
You know the other thing I just it hit me now. I'm like, remember, Renan Fajeda had a, he fought Ryan Bader, and then he pretty much waited a whole year for this fight for it to go down like that. It's just it's
and the Bader
crazy to
fight
me.
was only what 35 seconds. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a short fight, So yeah, I mean that's yeah, you're sitting on shelves. You're I don't know. It seems like, but that's what they're in. This is what the PFL is like right now. Where's Ngannou go? See, we talk about Cyborg, and like we don't even know if Ngannou,
Well,
what now?
yeah. Well,
you know,
that's one thing about Mister the counselor up north, Eric McCracken, and I. We chimed in on social media together about, again, the whole thing with the Saudi money. If they're in bed with Saudi and they do events with Ngannou, Saudi Arabia, throw enough money at John Jones to make Ngannou John Jones happen. The UFC will be on board if you show them money like they did with Mayweather McGregor. Because remember, Dana White was completely against that too until there was too much money to be being made. The history can repeat itself there, and I wouldn't be surprised with all the Saudi oil money being thrown at MMA right now, combat sports. I wouldn't be surprised if we can see that fight and it becomes like the mega pay-per-view. The only thing I don't like is that it would be, if they did it there, it would be another early ass card. I mean, I like that and I don't like it. I'd like it at prime time, but I'll take it. I'll take it however I can get it.
yeah, he likes to dream. I don't know if the UFC would be as. I think boxing was a different thing because I don't think anybody really thought McGregor was going to beat Mayweather. I don't know if the UFC at this point, no, I don't know if there's any amount of money that would be worth them losing their credibility.
Risking the brand. Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
it would have to be basically what the Browns worth. Okay, if they want to give him $12 billion to make this fight, then maybe you do
Yeah.
it. But like, there's no upside from the UFC side because it doesn't the story, to kind of take it to a pro wrestling angle. There's no real story after that. John Jones, John Jones retires as the greatest fighter of all time, or he loses, but he can retire as the greatest fighter of all time in their minds by beating Stipe.
Mm-hmm.
So why would he? He doesn't gain a whole lot. Whereas if he goes out and Ngannou beats him, then what? Then it's like then it brings validation to the Nemkovs. Anybody who's like, well, I'd whoop the shit out of that light heavyweight, or I'd beat the hell out of that middleweight, or Eblin going, hey, I'm the greatest middleweight, and all of a sudden then you'd have, well, why? What do you mean? Why not? Look, they said John Jones was the greatest, and he's flatlined by Ngannou in 38 seconds. I mean, who knows? But I don't think it'll happen. I think it'll go down as one of those heavyweight fights that the UFC sat on an opportunity to make for years and didn't do it due to money. I mean, they could take Saudi money now, but they wouldn't give John Jones any money or Ngannou the money prior to make the fight. So whatever. But I'm glad to see what happened with Ngannou. I'm glad he won. I'm glad Cyborg won. I'm glad Eblin won. I'm glad the event went off without any catastrophes. And for the most part, we'll just kind of get to see what happens next to these people. Like I said, I have no idea. I don't know where the road goes for any of them. Probably Ngannou Wilder sounds kind of fun to me. Like there's not like, unless it's Nemkov, and only because he's Team Fedor and it brings a little bit of again, pro wrestling kind of storyline, the protege against the former GOAT of all-time heavyweight against the potential new GOAT, and if Nemkov can beat him, then he can't be the GOAT anymore. Right? You know what I mean? Like it's how now he could still in normal talk because his resume is great, but we know how petty MMA fans are when it comes to the minute somebody loses, how quickly you become totally irrelevant. And I mean, McKee's going to go from top, the number one fighter under 25 years of age to a journeyman overnight by half the people that write about our sport and follow it. So, but let's move on to the pay-per-view this Saturday, Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, awesome main event. Max Holloway, Ilia Topuria, and a nice undercard to go along with it. I'm not sure what fight you're pinpointing on the card, but like I said, the main card is pretty damn deep. We did lose the Volkov Gone fight, which is moved to 310.
It seems like from my point of view, the fight that's outside of the main event, the co-main event, because this fight with the middleweight bout with Whitaker and Chimaev seems to be the one that everybody's kind of like rubbing their hands, wringing their hands for in anticipation. And I'm kind of like I'm on board with that, just because um, I feel like you need. Yeah, I've been a little vocal about the middleweight needs to see some real action happen. Like Chimaev, when he first started, everybody was like all about him, and then he seemed to get sick every fucking week. So it's like, even Dana White kind of hinted at it one of the last times he was asked about him, how great he is if he could stay healthy. And then, when you're somebody that's running the promotion, you that's kind of a liability. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of want him to lose. And Whitaker seems more than happy. I mean, he's a plus 200 underdog, but I don't know if you. Well, we'll start it from the first prelim. Shar Magomedov versus Armen Petrosyan. They kick off the pay-per-view. Again, a lot of these guys are going to be like the featured that side of the world fighters, and Magomedov seems to be one of them. But I got my notes up here. I mean, they're both strikers. So I still think Magomedov is like probably going to inch out a decision, especially since Petrosyan coming off of 2 losses. So I'm leaning him to win either by decision or some sort of TKO.
I'm going with Magomedov by TKO. He's kind of their new poster boy for the Middle East fights. He's got the one eye, so it brings that.
Yeah, they already put him in a movie. Yeah,
yeah. And he's undefeated, and he's only in his 3rd UFC fight. They're putting him on the pay-per-view. I feel like this is a fight they know what they're doing. I think this will be a showcase fight for him. They put a guy stands up against him on the other side, and I think he probably gets I think this might be his highlight reel. He didn't really have any real highlight reel, nothing from his first couple fights. Won them both, but I think this one might be the one where you get that, that highlight now that you can finally put in a package together to really move him up the cards. I think as long as they keep pumping out these events in the Middle East, I think they're going to keep pushing him. So I think he wins. I think it's a fight that the UFC knows what they're doing, putting him in that fight on the opening of the pay-per-view.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's why he's opening it. I agree 100%. Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. I don't know if you want to go first here.
I like Ankalaev to win. I just think he's the number 1 contender. First of all, he should be fighting for the title, or should have fought for the title a couple weeks ago at 307. But I think he wins. His one loss was a buzzer beater loss. Last seconds he got choked out. I'm going to go with him to win. I think he's going to win by decision. But I think in a 3-round fight, I think he wins. I think he dominates, honestly.
Yeah. No, we're so far 1 for 1. I'm in agreement with you. Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. Interesting fight.
Interesting. This is the one that was moved onto the card when they moved the Gon fight. Ige's last fight was the 2-hour notice against Diego Lopez at 303. But you're fighting now a guy who's undefeated. I know Ige got the BMF title a little bit for taking that fight late notice. Put up a fair performance that night, mainly to save the card though, and help save the event in a way. I'm gonna take. He's durable as hell. I'm gonna take him to lose a decision. I think Murphy wins a decision. 14-0. 18-8. I know the competition is not exactly the same, but I think Ige moving up, and I feel like they're maybe moving him up quicker. Maybe giving him a little tougher opponent than he should have. In a sense to kind of reward him, but hopefully it doesn't. If he wins, he moves up good. But they didn't bury him on the early prelims. I think is the thing. They had to give him an opponent to get his name out there.
Interesting note from our resident physical therapist Kevin Nicholson on Rakic. Rakic struggling since returning from ACL reconstruction. I mean, he's on a 2-fight loss. I guess that's why. So yeah, I mean that's another thing to take consideration for that fight. I'm with you on the pick for Lerone Murphy. Let me see what I wrote down here. The only thing is, I again, like, I think it's more than just kind of like rewarding him. I feel like it also, the fact that he did that hours notice fight and then went to a decision speaks to his toughness. So that can go one of two ways. Either he, and for a prepared fight, a full camp, he's probably, better than he's ever been, or the damage he wore from a short notice fight, it's going to show this night, especially on that side of the world. But we'll see. But I mean, it's hard not to pick against Murphy. What do they have the odds at here? He's minus 270 favorite. Ron Murphy versus Dan Ige plus 220 underdog. So, and then with this fight, I guess this is the fanboy main event. Robert Whitaker
Well,
versus Khamzat Chimaev. I mean,
I kind of, to me, it's obviously the main event is a super fight barn burner, but this one, to me, this is the storytelling again goes into this fight because now we're going to find out what Chimaev really is all about. You know what I mean? There's no, assuming he makes the fight, he's still got to cut weight, and none of this has ever been. He did miss weight by 9 pounds one of his fights, so this is not exactly a sure thing that he even gets into this fight.
Yeah,
but
big concern.
But Whitaker is essentially the top, 1 through 4 middleweight for the last decade now. It's really the true test. If Chimaev wins this fight and he wins it convincingly, then there's really no reason to believe that he shouldn't be given a title shot at that point. I mean, we're getting in there. We don't need to see the Strickland rematches and stuff. To me, it's like send him in there and let him go get the belt that he's been kind of ordained to eventually get. But I'm going to pick Whitaker. I think that the inactivity of Chimaev, I think that Whitaker getting a win on that part of the country in Saudi Arabia just recently, I think will help him. I think it'll help him be more comfortable. I think the fans will be more behind them than they would have been if these guys have just fought the first time. I think that he's from what I've seen so far, I believe him to be a better mixed martial arts fighter.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that.
No, and I'm picking Whitaker just because I simply want him to win. Nothing against Chimaev or anything, but I kind of hinted at it before we got into it. I mean, he's when you look at the sport, with the sicknesses and the rashes and all the stuff, and then there's issues of him coming into the country, and never mind all the other stuff with the favors he does for warlords out there and whatever. What you just said about Whitaker being the better mixed martial artist, that goes deeper with when you look not just skill set, talent, and where they're at in their careers, just overall as a complete like human being and athlete and stuff like that. I think it's just better for Whitaker to win and kind of not shut this train out, but just slow it down, the Chimaev train, because you got to fight. You got to fight. You want to stay relevant, and with all the stuff that he's got going on, I mean, I know he's supposed to be the next coming of Khabib to some people, but I'm just like, dude, like the face Dana White had when I forget who because he goes on all these random podcasts now. I forget who he was talking to when he was talking about Chimaev. He was like, if the guy could stay healthy, and that was literally like the face he made was how I feel about Chimaev.
Yeah, if
plus 200 to minus 245. What do you think about those odds?
I don't disagree with the odds. I can see Chimaev being the favorite based off what we've seen in the past. I just think that this is different water. He might go out there and he might boat race Whitaker. He might wrestle him down and he might choke him out or forearm smash him. Done in a minute and a half. But until that happens, I'm going to stick with Robert Whitaker. And I'm not a huge Robert Whitaker fan. I just think that I've gained more respect for him as the years have gone by, and I think that this is a true test against a guy who could easily be the middleweight champion. Whitaker could easily be the champion if a couple things had went his way. In this fight with Israel, he could have won that decision, and who knows then what happens. But I just think it's a fun fight, it'll be a telling fight. It'll be one that I definitely will have to not miss a second of because it I mean, we could be watching the future of the. You're either gonna, you could be watching the future of the sport. If Chimaev goes out there and does this thing, which he
Yeah.
wants to do, then who? But again, can he fight in the United States? Can he fight in?
Yeah.
Like we don't
That's
know
my
really. We
problem.
don't know all the ins and outs and all the politics that are going on right now. So the last thing I
Is
want
he
is
going to
to
get
put
chicken pox and be out for 6 months?
yeah, because the last thing I want is to put a belt around a guy who can only fight when they have an event in a country once a year. Or twice a year. That's getting ridiculous. But on to the main event. Ilia Topuria, Max Holloway.
Champ versus the BMF champ, technically, right? He's the BMF champ. So
yeah.
Interesting odds. Max is the underdog at plus 195, minus 238 favorite for Ilia Topuria.
I honestly am so on the fence on this pick still. Like I think Topuria, but then I think, well, I just watched Max Holloway knock out Justin Gaethje.
Yep.
So but in a scenario where they threw down and it would have been a decision in 99.9% of other dimensions where they just fight out that last 10 seconds like every other fight in the history of the sport, essentially. But it didn't happen. He knocked him out. This is a little bit like the co-main event in a sense. I know Topuria beat Volkanovski, but this is another stepping stone where it's like, Topuria, does he win and go on to he's undefeated. When guys are undefeated, that 0 jumps out at me. I don't care who you are. That 0 jumps out at me. And I think mentally I'll be rooting for Holloway, but I'm slightly leaning, and I'm not really even making a pick right now, but I'm like 51% leaning to Topuria if that way. But I think I don't see any way this isn't a good fight. And I don't know how it ends. And
probably gonna be fun.
I don't want to see him like walk out in the first 10 seconds and point to the ground. Like let's not just turn this into a rock'em sock'em robot thing. Last 10 seconds of a round or last 10 seconds of a fight or whatever. Okay, cool. But I want to see what both these guys are bringing to the table against each other. And I'd love to see about, 12 minutes of great combat and then somebody getting finished in about the third, fourth round would be outstanding.
Well, me and Nappy he are on the same page. I'm Max all the way. I'm picking Max because I picked against him when he fought Justin Gaethje, and we saw how that happened. So to quote, it was y'all must have forgot moment for me. So I'm like, I'm not gonna make that mistake again. And he's riding a certain high right now. Eric 1X actually makes a really good point here. Brain Topuria, heart Max. I mean, it could come down to that, man. If you look at the if it goes to the final rounds, it could come down to heart because but Max you can't sleep on him either because he had a technical he was technically smarter than Gaethje too in that fight, which is kind of why he won too. He threw.
Oh, he was gonna win 4 or 5 rounds of that fight.
Yeah.
I wonder. Okay, Topuria. When I think of Topuria, I think about the Ryan Hall domination. I think about the Bryce Mitchell domination. I think about this Volkanovski domination. Essentially, let's see what happens when he's in a fight where he's tasting his own blood. Blood's pouring out of his eye. It's the 4th round against Max Holloway, and Holloway looks like he's about ready to sacrifice you. You know what I mean? Like, let's see what happens.
Kevin Nicholson coming in hot with the hot take. Holloway via submission. I wonder what the odds are on that. I mean, you do those rare, those unique win odds.
To me, that would be like a drop in a guy and then grabbing him in a guillotine. Something like that. Maybe I don't know. There's so much to this fight. It's a great fight. It sucks. It takes place kind of in the noon for me on the West Coast. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it takes away some of that big fight feel for me when it's right in the middle of the day. But I don't. There's a part of me that thinks this might not be the first time these guys fight. It seems to me like they're almost paired up perfectly, and if they give us what potentially could happen, I could see. Especially if Holloway wins, I could see a rematch. Because it seems like this is all made up for fight of the year. I don't.
Max is going to be fighter of the year by the end of this year.
Well, he's got to win spectacularly to pass.
If he does, you're right. You're right.
So, anyways, though, that's this. I think the prelims are noon Eastern on That might even be the ESPN.
Prelims begin 10 a.m. Eastern.
So 7 Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. Main card 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 Pacific. So you know how to watch that if you're a
2 p.m.
UFC
Eastern.
fan.
2 p.m. Eastern on the main card.
Okay, because there's 4 hours of.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, people know how to watch it if they watch UFC events. So that's on this Saturday.
Yeah.
And
look at them. Nicholson pulling the odds out. Plus 2,500 on DraftKings for Holloway. That's right now. We're recording on Tuesday, so it might be more or less come fight day. They won't be mentioning it. I don't think
Kevin needs to drop about $100 on that. They can pay for Dwarf Wrestling for the rest of your life, Kevin, out there in Texas. You could have like season tickets to their whole,
or whatever it is.
The micro minis, I think it was, or the extreme dwarfinators. Dwarfinators is what Kevin said he went to and out there. So
dwarfinators.
Well, let's end it on that. Fans can follow the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Edit Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Thanks for listening, everyone. Dwarfinators do rule, and have a good night.
See you guys.